Welcome to the Her Voice Shines podcast, where we celebrate the power, brilliance, and resilience of women everywhere. I'm your host, Shanasia Washington. Join us as we share inspiring stories and insights from extraordinary women who have found their voice and are making a difference. Together, we'll create a ripple effect, illuminating the path to visibility and empowerment. Let's break barriers, shatter ceilings, and lift each other up. In each episode, we dive deep into the journeys of women who have turned their challenges into triumphs and their dreams into reality. Whether you're looking for motivation, guidance, or a community that understands your journey, you're in the right place. Stay tuned and remember, let your voice shine. And just like that, I'm back like I never left. It is another amazing episode of the Her Voice Shines podcast. I am your beautiful host, Shanasia Washington, streaming in the wonderful city of Houston, Texas. And you know it's no different today. Another amazing woman hits the stage. You know the drill. We don't take long here. She comes to the stage, tells us her name, where she's streaming from, and guess what? Boom, she drops that story. And without any further waiting time, here's my very beautiful guest for today.
Hello, hello, hello. I am Precious Monet. I am the CEO and founder of VHS Consulting Firm. I am the talent amplifier. So I amplify talent. What my organization does is we go into businesses, assess their business, assess their talent, and essentially unleashing the talent within their team. Oftentimes, when it comes to businesses, we focus so much on the profit and we don't focus on the people. So my organization focuses on the people, focuses on talent development, providing the necessary training to have employees at their fullest potential. Again, I'm Precious Monet. My firm is VHS Consulting Firm, and I am looking forward to connecting with you today.
And Precious, I thank you for that beautiful introduction. First thing, she said she's the talent amplifier. So let's just stand on that. That's a big name. She amplifying talent around here and making sure that people that are in these places, talents are maximized. So let me ask you this, because I left corporate in 2021 and I always knew that people are our best resources, right? So I tried to, on the ground, build the people that I managed in the best way that I could, because they were the ones that were getting the thing done. From your perspective, Precious, what is the biggest gap right now in kind of talent development? I knew some that were existing back in 2021. I just want to see if their mold has shifted any in these last 3 years.
I'm sure it hasn't. I think at the end of the day that employers tend to not focus on the people. They're not empathetic. They are focused more on the task versus the individual. Sometimes it's just an assessment of, do we have the right person in the right role? And sometimes that if you don't have that person in the right role, you're not going to set them up for success. And essentially then that person is not productive or brings any profitability.
Yes, absolutely. The other thing that was very rampant in the workplace, and I know for sure it's still happening now, was that work-life balance. And it's such a buzzword now, but as time has progressed, I mean, it's just so much more stuff to do, right? The cities are overpopulated. We need more time to commute. We need more time to do this, balance the kids, to do whatever. Is that still a big discussion? I know it is, but I want to hear from the talent amplifier's point of view about the climate, really, of work-life balance.
It's still a big thing when it comes to work-life balance. And you know what employers are trying to do? They're trying to have one individual do multiple roles. So you're stretching that individual. They're feeling overwhelmed at work. They're doing extended hours. So by the time they get home, some people have families, so then it's nonstop and it's overwhelming. So yes, that work-life balance is still a struggle. You really got to find ways to manage your time and making sure that you're working for an employer that values your time as well.
Yeah, and sometimes that's not always hard to do. Sometimes you kind of have to almost stick it out so we can find that next. What are some good questions, right, that you would give someone who's looking for maybe another place of work that embodies work-life balance, that embodies culture, that embodies morale? What are some of those kind of questions that they maybe can ask in an interview to gauge, is this employer just blowing up smoke, or they really walking the walk? Because some of them will blow a little smoke. So yeah. What are some good questions they can ask to kind of see if that work environment is somewhere they could potentially thrive?
One of my favorite questions is most employers, they do employee surveys. And the question I like to ask is around employee surveys. Do you do employee surveys? What was the last action you have taken to implement some of the employees' feedback based on the survey? So that's going to give you an opportunity to learn what opportunities the organization had or what they did about those opportunities. That's one of my favorite questions. And another one is really interviewing the person, the hiring manager, who you're working for. Are they a micromanager? What is their management style? How do they do employee recognition? Someone's doing a good job, how do they know that they're doing a good job? So those are my top two favorite to kind of get a sense of the culture and who you'll be working for.
So the other part of that is that when you're actually going into the organizations to develop their talent, are you going in and doing just primarily professional development, or is it a combination of working with the employer to maybe cultivate culture? What, like, holistically does your services entail?
So it's a little bit of both. So I go in and assess the business. People hire my organization in order to, one, they're not being profitable, and they're trying to figure out what the disconnect is. And 90% of the time, the disconnect is the people. Again, either not having people in the right role, not pushing that talent, not providing the tools or the resources for that employee to be successful. So I think it's a little bit of both. It's important that when I go in, it's really just analyzing what tools and resources they have in place. What are some of the things that they don't have in place, whether it be employee recognition, whether it be performance management, and then coming up with a strategic plan that implements those tools and resources so you can evaluate the employee's performance. And then before making any changes, really observing that period of implementation, observing it for about 30 to 60 days, and see how the employees adapt to the changes.
Yeah, that evaluation period after is really like that golden sweet spot, because you can do all this stuff, the strategic planning, you can do all these things, all the book stuff, right? But until it's walked out on the ground and it's actually touched, that's when you can actually see the adjustments. I can remember going through lots of strategy changes, and I can tell you, like, on the cool, one of the things that's really, really important is having those people in the right roles. I remember when I managed a team, when I started to manage them, I had no idea what the team itself did. I just came back from mat leave and I was over a brand new team. So what that allowed me to do was, like, I was like, well, shoot, so I don't know what they do. I don't even know really why I should be management. Why am I the manager? Well, what I did was I was able to sit down with each person across the team. And I was like, it's going to look a little weird, but I'm just checking you out, your work style, to show me how you navigate the system. But what that taught me in that walk was that I got to understand communication styles. Oh, this person's super, super organized. So I know how to tailor my communication to speak to this person because that's how he or she responds. And it allowed me to, on the ground, build community with them by understanding their work habits and really, really makes them thrive. So I think it's important for employers to know that if you don't understand really the core of the person, it's going to be hard for you to align them with the proper roles. And these kind of things are things you should be investing money in. And I'm talking to the person that was as an employee in a role that really I should not have been in by default, but I learned how to thrive because that's what I had to do. But I, in that, was raising my hands for the roles I wanted to, attract to, and that didn't translate. So I got up out of there. And I'm saying this also to say that people are leaving, good talent are leaving the place because they're not being aligned with the proper roles. They're not being compensated properly. And then also too, what we talked about in the beginning of the episode was that struggle for work-life balance. So let me ask you this question from your standpoint and all the things and clients that you worked on. What are some, and you don't have to give the goal, but this may be a part of some of the things that you offer, paid services. What has been some of that really, really good goal that you've seen in the last year? Maybe a case study where that morale just turned around 180, because we have to hear these success stories, because this is where we can tell that investment makes sense.
Great point. I think it's important to, one, it starts from leadership. You have to get the buy-in of the leadership team first because it starts at the top. And I think that when it comes to getting their buy-in and getting them on board, it's a little bit more easier to get employees to get on board with whatever changes. And I'm a firm believer that people really don't leave companies, they leave who they work for. So you got to think about, how do you make your associates feel? I think the biggest win for me is being able to see an organization going from struggling to connecting with their employees to really turning it around, that their retention literally went from 92% to 71%. Being able to monitor that retention, being able to see that turnaround slowly go down, I think for me is the biggest win over the last year.
That's good, because another thing to add is that it costs a lot of money to train people. I mean, if you've never worked behind the scenes to evaluate training costs and turnover rates, then you don't know about this conversation seriously. So I also know about the time commitment that it takes to, number one, find the resources, train them, keep them there. It's a whole cost component behind that many people don't understand. It is very expensive to not retain.
Right. Yeah. It's funny you bring that up, because I literally just did a study for one of my clients, and it really starts from the tools, the posting of the job, the time it takes to recruit, all of that, getting that person onboarded. Once that person's onboarding, providing the training, and then for that person to leave. That particular study, that was $4,500 walking out the door. And it took that client to realize that dollar amount that we needed to change the experience of the onboarding for the employees.
See, girl, you walk in my last life, Precious, because I was just trying to tell them that. That's what I was just trying to tell them that, yeah, it costs a lot more money, especially if you're working for a company where that onboarding process is very heavy. Some employers, it's easy to get on. You just do posting and have maybe a phone interview, virtual interview. They check your background, you're good. The kind of places I worked in, we had an assessment test that was 3 hours. We had a peer interview. That was another thing. Then we had a hiring manager interview. You talking potentially 6 weeks before you know if you've even done anything. So that's right. A time investment. I can remember being behind the scenes, having to take blocks of my time as a busy manager working a work queue to stop and do 3-hour blocks of interviews. It costs. It costs. I just have to say it from that I've walked it and walked that corporate space from a lot of different angles. But this is for you, Precious, because I definitely have to talk about Precious the woman here, because you do a lot of things. You know, HR consultant, I hear you're an author, I hear you're a speaker, I hear you got like life going on, okay? So the question here becomes, how did that balance come into play, and where does that time management skill kind of peak up for you? Because when you're doing a lot of things, and when you go in there in these people's companies, baby, that takes energy, because you got to hear all their problems and all that. You know what I'm talking about, right? You got to come to the other side of things and, you know, be the author speaker. Talk about that time management piece and really how you were making sure that you're kind of shored up for this journey.
So for me, honestly, it had to put a toll on me health-wise for me to realize I needed a healthy balance. At one point in my life, I was on go, go, go mode, nonstop. I had that motto like everybody else: I'll sleep when I'm dead. Learned the hard way, got really sick and determined, and that's when I needed to turn my life around. My motto now is I want to sleep when I'm alive. So for me, it took that experience to really take life work balance seriously. So for me, little things that I do to be able to balance it all is, one, I have something called transitional periods. Anything that I do, like for example, when I get off this podcast, my transitional period means I sit in silence for a couple minutes before I do the next task, or switch my mindset to something else. After a client, same thing, transitional period. Like you said, it's a lot of energy. It takes a lot of energy going into these organizations, a lot of people energy that I have to take in. So those transitional periods are really healthy for me. I start my day in quiet time. I'm a Christian. I read my Bible. If I don't start my quiet time, I'm telling you, I don't feel good for that day. So I have to have my quiet time and read my Bible, have my little worship to get my day started. And then, like I said, my transitional periods throughout the day is what makes me be able to balance it all.
Okay, that's kind of golden there, because those are like little small steps you can take when you think about work-life balance, those transitional periods. And to be honest, actually, since I've been recording, because, well, to be honest, when I do these, it's like good energy though. I don't have like, it's not a pull, but I have found that if I have like a strong block of these interviews, when I can have like 30 minutes, 40 minutes, just to kind of woof, regather, and then come back. It's like I get this new, fresh breath of air. And those are little small things that we can take to balance, and I'm gonna have to make sure I strategically incorporate those transitional periods because they make a difference, right? They give you just a little time to just kind of be like, let it down, recharge, and kind of hit it again harder. So I'm always trying to look at my days like, okay, we get the same 24. It ain't changing. It's not changing to 36 or 48. No time to.
Right. You gotta be intentional about your time. And if you're not intentional, that time is going to get away from you. And if I would always do an exercise with my clients when I'm coaching clients is we go through their day. What does their 24 hours look like? And a lot of people don't realize how many time wasters they have. They have so many time wasters and didn't realize, wow, I spend this much time scrolling on social media, or I have this much time. I didn't realize I watch TV. It's important to be intentional about your time and block time. I block time for everything. I might block an hour just to relax. So therefore I have that balance.
Yeah, I love it. I want to shift briefly because I think you'd be a great person to ask us. Let's talk emotional intelligence. It's a topic that it gets kind of trendy and almost cliche at times, but some people, or a lot of people, I will say, don't actually walk the emotional intelligence path. What you do in organizations, specifically as it relates to building employee talent, hinges a lot on emotional intelligence. It was my sweet spot in corporate. It was the things that I used to cultivate community across global teams. I mean, I don't even know these people like person, let alone culture. I don't know about their culture. But it was the emotional intelligence piece that really allowed me to build a community. And really, honestly, today, Precious, it is kind of like my golden ticket to a lot of opportunities I get invited to. And I'm very transparent about that. I want you to talk to me about emotional intelligence, how that plays a role in what you do. I just tapped on this a little bit. But really the importance of that, especially in a space as you are amplifying talent.
It's important to have one self-awareness because if you're not self-aware of what triggers you, if you're not self-aware what's going to get you from 0 to 10, if you're not in tune with yourself, then how are you going to be able to be coachable? How are you ever going to be able to receive feedback, constructive feedback? I think out of all emotional intelligence, you have to teach people to be a little bit more self-aware, because if you're self-aware, then you can take action to implement the things you need in order to be successful.
Self-awareness, that is key, because many of you can solve many of them problems you think you have. Okay. If you turn the camera around and put it on you and then look, okay, because there is definitely a space in me, and it's literally in tune with my prayer life. That self-awareness stays on the forefront. I through life, I've never, not saying I'm perfect, but I've never had to have a lot of correction because I kind of already like, oh, I feel it. Oh, you could have done that better. I feel it already. Not saying it's perfection, but it becomes really a toolkit for you to navigate the space a little bit easier if you're self-aware. So that's good. I think that's like the first or second pillar, I think, of emotional intelligence as a whole is self-awareness. So thank you, Precious. No, go ahead.
So too, like when you're not self-aware, you tend to struggle to receive feedback. A lot of people, when they have jobs, they think they know it all. They're set in their ways. They're comfortable. They don't want to learn, right? So for me, in most of my trainings, I have to do some exercises so they can become self-aware. And then now they're open to more feedback. They're open to more learning ways to maybe do something smarter work versus working harder. So little things like that. I think it's so important when it comes to training to really start with self-awareness so they can really reflect on their actions, and then we can better set them up for success as far as the training.
Absolutely, because another part of self-awareness is saying, baby, I don't know and I don't want to know. Okay, because let me be very clear with you. I don't even want to know. That's not even, you got it. You handle it. When you're younger, I found this in my career when I was much younger and I was really climbing a corporate ladder, like early, right after college, 22, 23, I was just, I'm still now very eager to get information, eager. And information flows to me quickly. I can, digest it, disseminate, all that kind of things. But when I got towards the latter part of that career, I said, oh no, I only got a certain capacity now. I got a certain capacity now for learning all this little extra stuff. I don't even I don't even want to know. If that is your skill set and you're grand and golden, and that's what you want to do and that's your sweet spot, I'm going to allow you to thrive on it because I know that that's kind of like my weakness. So along with that self-awareness piece, you start to have that walk with yourself and allow others to thrive in the parts and stuff that they're strong and you fall back. I say my fallback game is so strong. Lord have mercy. After a while, first I ain't going to be doing nothing.
I hear that.
I'm not going to be doing nothing. But let me give you the opportunity now to tell us kind of the what's next in your business, and also to the what's next that you're working on. It could be maybe in the speaking and the author. And don't leave this segment either without telling us about the book or books that you've authored.
So right now, my focus is really just expanding. I originally was living in Atlanta, Georgia, been there for over 10, 15 years. So I just transitioned to Nashville, Tennessee. So I want to expand my market throughout the US. That's my primary focus right now, is just bringing brand awareness to the business. And then as far as expanding people's mindset and impact and really pushing them to be their fullest potential. I always say that if you're at a job and you're working and you're passionate about your work, then it doesn't feel like work, right? It doesn't feel overwhelming. It feels great waking up to go to work every day. And granted, that's not everybody's goal, but when you're at a job and you're miserable, it changes your life perspective on things. And I tell you, when you go through life unhappy, you are not a happy individual, period. But if you're truly doing things that serves you, if you're truly doing things that's your purpose, I'm telling you, life becomes much easier. As far as some of the things I'm working on, that's the main thing I'm working right now is really expanding the consulting business. Yes, I am a speaker, so I do speak at a lot of women's events, and I do have a couple of books. My first one is Free Yourself from Yourself, which it talks about fear and anxiety. I actually suffered from fear and anxiety, so that book helps you and provides you tools on how to overcome that. My next book is Without Passion, What's the Purpose? So that book specifically helps you with your purpose. And then my last recent book is Sisterhood Sabotage, the keys to go from heal to whole. I think sometimes when we experience sabotage, betrayal, especially in the workplace, it's hard to overcome that. And how do you have to learn how to work through that in the workplace and both in your personal life?
The person talking about, I done got 3 books out here now. She said 1, 2, and 3. You better go, author. Sister Sabotage really stood out to me. I think the tail end of that, because it is hard to sometimes move past self-sabotage. That's a whole different. We'll be here all night. Number 1, self-sabotage. And then the other one being, sabotage from others. Because at the end, like 2020, 2021, that's when I was having like my new awakening, right? I'm living life differently. I'm left 13-year corporate career, started the business, wrote a book, did all these things. And I found this new awakening. But that period before the awakening, ooh, it hurt a lot. Tears, breakouts, loss of sleep, trying to redefine. So when I tell people, like, sometimes that pain, may be necessary for the next thing, but you also too have to free your mind in the journey, because you'll still try to reach back and grow. Even though you're on this new path, it may be a trigger that tries to take you back to this, and you start that self-sabotage, you know what I mean? That self-sabotage journey over again. So I'm gonna have to check out that Sister Sabotage. That sounds like something that I need to maybe skim a few pages through. Now, Precious, tell us where we can find you, connect with you. If you want that to be your social medias, let us know. If not, give us the website. Even let us know where these books are available.
The books are available on Amazon, but you can find anything and all things Precious Monet at preciousmonet.com. It has my consulting business, speaking opportunities, and it has all my books as well. So Precious Monet, Monet.com on all, as far as finding all my platforms and social media and Instagram. I am Precious Monet.
I love it. Let's talk life and legacy quickly. Where are you with that? I mean, I would say in the last 5 years, what life and legacy looks like to me has been about the same. But prior to that 5 years ago, it was a little bit different. But as I walk my journey and I understand what really matters to me, I think I've gotten to a point where it's nailed. This is Sinead's life and legacy. Where is Precious with life and legacy? What does that mean to her? And if you were kind of like at the end of your journey, what would you have hoped that you would have accomplished? You're on mute.
Ooh, I think life and legacy for me is about peace. Nothing disturbing my peace, nothing nor anyone being able to disturb my peace. Removing myself from situations where it might disturb my peace. I think for me, that's where I'm at. My legacy really is just impacting lives to really push people to their fullest potential so they can walk in their purpose.
Yeah, and I know you guys hear this often when these women come here and say this is walking purpose, walking purpose, walking purpose. I know at times you can start to feel that to be cliche, but until you grab it, like you really grab it in your spirit, you probably really won't understand it. It will continue to seem cliche, like when you hear people say it. Because I remember hearing it all the time when I was in corporate. It was like, oh, okay. But it wasn't until I made a decision to say, Shanadra, what is it? You're going to put it down on paper, then you're going to find the action steps to get there to purpose. So thank you for bringing a reference point to that. Now, in terms of your consulting business, I do want to ask you this. What has been kind of your biggest challenges? I want to talk about this quickly before we close. What are some of those challenges? Because I have tons of people out here who are starting consulting businesses, trying to figure out how to navigate the space. Where have those challenges been for you, and what are you doing to overcome those?
I think the challenge right now is brand awareness, finding the right organization from a PR standpoint, also from a marketing standpoint, to make sure they have the right messaging. Consulting is consulting, but I think for me, it's really important to have someone that really resonates with the story, really overcoming challenges in the workplace, both from an employee and employer standpoint. So that's really important to me. I think that at the end of the day, it's just all about being intentional, pouring into people, pouring into individuals so that they can become really, really fulfilling. Like when you're walking in your purpose, you feel fulfilled, you feel joy. It's like you got a skip to your walk. And like you've mentioned, you really don't know until you've experienced it.
Yeah, absolutely. That experience is definitely is key. Now, Precious, this is the part of our episode where we cue to you for final thoughts. And I tell people this is the segment where if someone was to catch nothing but this, you tell us your final parting words and really something that brings home the essence of Precious.
My final thoughts is I really want you to assess yourself, reflect, really go through some self-awareness exercises, and really know that you are settled within yourself. And what I mean by that, we're a couple different people. We're quite a few different people before we truly settle into ourselves. We're comfortable with ourselves. So if you don't learn anything from this podcast, I want you to become self-aware, really analyzing and digging into what your true purpose is. Because again, once you find your purpose and once you're passionate about it, it's never going to feel like work.
That's it. I also to remember in that as you are walking your purpose, it won't feel like work, but also to go back to what Precious said in the beginning or middle of this episode about taking those intentional blocks of time. Even walking in purpose, you may get a little bit weary. It'll feel good, but you can still very much so get weary. So make sure you're taking those times to say, okay, hey, I'm stepping back, I'm pivoting. I don't care if those are 5-minute blocks per day, but those are tangible and actionable steps. For those of you that are out there struggling with even that work-life balance, those are things that you can add into your everyday to make this journey a little bit lighter. I want to thank you, Precious, for being here. What a fabulous episode. I really want to thank you for sharing your insight. To those of our listeners and viewers here, this is the Her Voice Shine podcast, and I always tell you I love you, and to remember to let your voice shine because transformative things happen when you do. We'll be back really in no time with another amazing guest. I want to thank you for tuning in, and we're out.